This is exciting, huh, Walter? You gonna help me out? It's here! The day has finally arrived. It's fall! What's the temperature outside, Zach?
It's 98. Feels like 105.
98 feels like 105. Well, Texas, bless your heart. But I'll take it. At least it's not 110, feels like 130.
It's too hot today.
With the beginning of fall comes the beginning of football season. It's a glorious time of year because your favorite team has not yet destroyed your hopes and dreams for a Super Bowl. That will come weeks down the road for most of us, sadly. But until that day arrives, we're going to enjoy the ride and enjoy some good tailgating food. And that's what we're doing today. We're making one of the most perfect finger foods for tailgating, brisket burnt ends. And we're gonna do it on the Dyna offset smoker. Now, you might be thinking that dude's insane. You can't smoke a brisket on a Sunday and have it ready for the game. And you'd be right. That's why we're gonna do it the day before. We're gonna smoke it on Saturday. I have here a whole brisket. I'm gonna attempt to separate the point and flat, and then we're going to smoke the point tonight when it's a little bit cooler outside. Then I'm gonna let it rest, wrap it, and put it in the fridge. Tomorrow on Sunday, I'll cube it up and we'll finish it with a glaze. I'm excited to do this because I've never done it before and I've never seen anybody do it before, at least doing it over the course of 2 days. If it turns out great, maybe you might want to copy the recipe. If it turns out that it sucks, I'm gonna let you know and you won't have to waste your time. Either way, saddle up and enjoy the journey because I think it's gonna be a good one. Let's roll. Oh, almost stepped on Walter's head. Let's roll out some peach paper and get to butchering. The first thing I'm going to do is get that fat cap down to about 1/4 inch. You always want to try to leave at least that amount so it renders into the brisket. Now, I have to admit, my butchering skills are pretty novice. And when I say novice, I mean as in, I've never done this before. I did watch quite a few videos on how to separate the point and the flat, and my confidence was high going in. Supposedly, you're supposed to find a layer of fat that separates the two muscles and cut along that. But I found that difficult to find, and I quickly came to the conclusion that maybe it would have been better to just pay the extra few dollars per pound and buy the point already separated. The end result was I ended up with 2 pieces instead of 1, and my ego was a tad bruised. But I was determined to go forward anyway.
No! Never give up! Never surrender!
The next step is to get a rub on the brisket. I'm using 2 tablespoons each of salt, pepper, and smoked paprika, and 1 tablespoon of celery seed. Normally on a brisket I would go with just salt, pepper, and celery seed, but because I'll be adding some barbecue sauce to the burnt ends later, I added the paprika for a bit of heat and smokiness. Get this all over the brisket and pat it in. Once my coals are nice and hot, it's time to start adding the wood. Eventually the wood will replace the coal and be the only fuel I'll be using. I'm using 1/4 splits of pecan for this. You'll notice the full-size pan with water on the lowest rack. I use this to regulate the temp evenly through the smoking cabinet. You can learn about this and more on my Dyna-Glo tutorial. I'm using 2 probes, one inside the largest piece of brisket and one pierced through a ball of tinfoil to monitor the cabinet temp. The temp gauge on the Dyna is pretty accurate as long as you use the pan and the water. I just add the extra probe so I can monitor remotely if I need to. Now there's nothing left to do but relax and enjoy the evening while we wait for the brisket to hit a temp around 165 or so. And of course to add the occasional split to maintain 250 and do some spritzing if needed. I'm using beef broth here. Yep. After 3 hours, the brisket was smoked enough and had reached a temp of 170. It was ready to wrap. Again, I'm using a probe in the largest part of the brisket, but now it's set for 200. Now let me pause here to make a comment. I could have continued cooking this on the smoker, but I really don't like wasting wood if I don't have to, and at this point we have enough smoke on the meat. Besides, it was getting kind of late. Notice the water pan again. You definitely want something like it to maintain temp evenly, even in an oven, and catch any leaks. It also keeps the meat from drying out. Yes, after 3 hours in the oven, 6 hours total now, the brisket had reached a temperature of 200 degrees. Here I'm probing it for tenderness, and it's just like butter. No resistance at all. Which is good, because as we all know,
resistance is futile.
The last step for the night is to get the brisket and its juices into a container and then into the fridge. Well, actually, we decided that we deserved to try a little slice before we put it away. You know, for testing purposes, of course.
That. Good. You're gonna get demonetized if you say that.
Okay, now it's time to actually put it away. And it took a lot of willpower to do it, let me tell you, because it was freaking good.
It's Sunday, Sunday, Sunday!
Yes, it's Sunday morning and we are just 2 hours away from kickoff. Notice the jellied fat in the pan. I scraped that out and warmed it up for the glaze. That's good stuff right there. I cubed up the brisket into 1.5 inch pieces. I added some of the rub we used yesterday, the pan juices I saved, and then the barbecue sauce. I'm using Yu's sugar-free sweet and spicy. Of course, use whatever you like. I would say I put in about 1 cup and then gave it a good toss. Then back into the oven it goes, uncovered at 250 degrees. Now, let me pause here to mention you can, of course, use just about any heat source you want to finish these. A Weber kettle, an offset smoker, or of course, your own oven. I would say just keep your temp around 250 to 350 degrees. And then I gave them a toss about every 30 minutes or so. Well, after a bit, Walter was thinking the burnt ends were ready. He has a nose for these things, and I'm thinking he's right. Just one more final toss, and we are ready to go. All right, so I think they're ready. It's been 90 minutes at 250 degrees in the oven. Let's take a taste test and see what we got. Easily pierce it with a toothpick. That is so good. That is good. A little more toothsome than I thought it was going to be, but that is fine because it had more meat on it. Very tender, so squishy. Let's see if we can get a close-up shot of the squishy. All right, so these came out really good, despite the fact that I didn't cut the point great, but I mean, it actually came out to be much better than I expected it would be. I like the addition of the barbecue sauce, which is unusual for brisket, but it was, in this case, just enough for me, not too sweet, a little bit spicy with the rub. These are great. You can make these the day before and have them in, and then take them out and have them ready for game day and just heat them up about an hour, 90 minutes before the game on your grill, whatever, at a temperature around 250 degrees, and it's going to be delicious. I didn't put any sugar on it or honey or anything like that. I don't think it needs it, but you can always add that if you want to. Anyway, thanks for watching. Tune in again, and we'll see you on down the dusty trail of the chuck wagon. I gotta get some more of these.